Hi, my name is John.
And my name is Lloyd.
And we're the hosts of The Pint,
a pop culture podcast.
Lloyd, if you had to tell any of the people out there that might be listening to The Pint for the first time about anything unsavory or disconcerting we might do on the show, what would you warn them about?
Well, sometimes we drop spoilers, and sometimes we swear like motherfucking sailors.
Fuck yeah, we do. You heard it from him. You've been warned.
Listen in.
Sorry, we're closed.
Well, then what are all these people doing here?
Drinking and having a good time.
Well, that's why we're here.
You're too stupid to have a good time.
Happy anniversary, April, everybody out there in Pint World. That's right. I'm John.
I'm Lloyd.
Hi, I'm Stu.
And as you know, on April 23rd, as we mentioned last week, on the incredibly depressing 1984 episode.
Oh, God.
What a way to start off a celebration. The Pint turned 7 years old on April 23rd. So this month, all four movies we're doing on the main feed and the two that we'll be doing over on the Patreon feed are all ones celebrating some form of a big anniversary. And this week we are talking about the 35th anniversary, 1989, of Roadhouse. Let's get into it.
Want to ring the bell?
All right. Ding, ding.
Roadhouse, released on May 19th, 1989 in New York and L.A., directed by Rowdy Harrington. Basically, this guy likes James Spader and Cuba Gooding Jr. because he's done a lot of work with them, including Jack's Back, Gladiator, not the Russell Crowe Gladiator, just a different one. Striking Distance, the stick-up Eyewitness. A lot of movies I don't really know too much about, but
I've seen Jack's Back. It's a not very good horror movie with James Spader.
that's one. Yeah, Spader. One of them.
I've never seen Gladiator, and Striking Distance was a bad Bruce Willis as a cop in Pittsburgh movie.
Yes.
Oh, right. And then we got a screenplay by R. Lance Hill, but his pseudonym was David Lee Henry. And the story by, because he also wrote the story. And he's known for The Evil That Men Do, Out for Justice, also Roadhouse 2024, which I've heard is really, really good.
Yeah. You go join the patron over at Patreon/The Pint. You can hear me and Stu talk about that one.
Yeah.
And how much we loved it.
Yeah. And also a screenplay credit by Hilary Henkin. She also worked with Wag the Dog, V for Vendetta, Romeo is Bleeding. Remember Flowers in the Attic? That as well.
It's amazing that a woman had her hand in this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're right.
Is it though? You've got shirtless Patrick Swayze and Sam Elliott at his hottest running around.
I don't know.
Amazing. It's not that amazing.
I don't know if I'd say Sam Elliott's at his hottest in this because he's missing one major component. He doesn't have the mustache in this. He's got a 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah, he's got the beard, though. The beard is good. The beard is very good.
The beard is good. The hair is amazing.
Yeah.
Sam Elliott, I've said it on the show before, and I've always described him this way. Sam Elliott is the guy that if you're like in our general age range, he's the guy your mom wanted to fuck. he's the movie star that your mom would probably tell your dad, oh, you go on up, Hank. I'll be up in a few minutes. I'm just watching Tombstone.
I have to say, if I had a hall pass for a dude, I think Sam Elliott in Roadhouse would be the guy.
I don't know. I mean, if I had a hall pass for a DILF dude, then it would be him, because he's got to be a little bit older. Has there ever been a moment in Sam Elliott's career and or life where someone has ever referred to him as less than cool? I doubt it.
Yeah, not really. You know, it's pretty funny too because they refer to him as the old man in this, right? You know how old he was?
I don't, but I'm going to guess because this is the kind of shit that always cracks me up. Like, I'm going to say 46.
You're too high.
Oh,
Holy
wow.
fuck.
Yeah, 43.
Wow.
Oh
I think
my
1 year
God.
older than Jake Gyllenhaal is like filming the new Roadhouse
Wow.
as the younger character.
He had some miles.
Yeah.
He certainly did. Holy fuck.
Yeah, so it was filmed in April of 1988, California, primarily in Newhall, Valencia,
Valencia.
and Canyon Country. Much of the Double Deuce, the new one, was used Anaheim's Cowboy Boogie Bar, also known as the Bandstand, and some other names until it finally closed. I didn't get the year it closed though. The monster truck scene that was formed in Reedley, California, that was called Bigfoot number 7. That particular truck.
I had a feeling that was a Bigfoot. Same
Yeah,
color
sure.
scheme. Yeah.
That's about all I got for that kind of stuff. But I can tell you on home media, between the VHS, the DVD, and Blu-ray and streaming, that thing had grossed over 203 million.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's pretty incredible because the original run was not nearly that high.
No.
And I do have, and I believe John does too, right? Do you have the Vinegar Syndrome?
I watched it the other night for the first time, and here's how you know that I have the Vinegar Syndrome special edition is because it takes up 3/4 of the shelf it's on. I don't know if
Yeah.
you have the same one as me.
I
but
do, with the box.
It's this thick. There's a book in it all
Yep.
about Roadhouse, and I know you can't see me, but I'm holding my fingers apart like 3 inches. This motherfucker takes up so much shelf space. But the art on it, look, again, we've talked about them a million times. Vinegar Syndrome, check them out. They do their own releases, and they restored and released Roadhouse as a 4K Blu-ray special edition a few years ago, and it's a great looking set
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, speaking of that, so you watched the 4K?
Yeah.
Mine just died, just completely stopped at like an hour and 20 minutes. Do you have any problem like that?
No, mine was
okay.
good. Mine was good.
Yeah, I had to fudge around with it for many minutes. I had to fast forward and then reverse and try to not hit that one spot again.
Yeah, I had my Shout Factory Blu-ray of the 88 Blob was like that. There's one scene at the end where Kevin Dillon is riding a motorbike through a tunnel, and it would just get locked on that scene. And I watched that movie, a couple times a year. I liked that movie. I'd watch it Halloween every year. And then finally this year when they came out with the 4K, I just bought the 4K, and I think I gave it to lovely Laura and said, I'm telling you right now, it's going to lock up on you, but the rest, it just,
Right.
if you fuck with the remote, it'll
And
get
unfortunately, it locks up on Kevin Dillon. So
yeah, and Larry doesn't like that.
so that's all I've got. What have you got for the cast?
Allow myself to introduce myself.
All right, so we're going to start off with Patrick Swayze, and I want to just point this out, that Patrick Swayze's cigarette should get a co-starring notation. He smokes in every fucking scene. It's such a weird choice to have your kind of like your protagonist / action hero / Tai Chi practicer / really in good shape dancer body guy be a heavy smoker, but he is. He plays James Dalton.
Watching this movie, I knew he died of cancer, but I didn't know what kind. But I was like, did he die of lung cancer? Because
Pancreatic?
he smokes. Yeah, pancreatic cancer, not related to the cigarettes, but he does. He smokes an absurd amount in this movie.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. You would think at some point they would go, he's off. Like, we get it. He smokes. He's off a little bit.
Did you watch any of the other features on that Vinegar Syndrome?
Not yet, no.
I did watch some, and boy, I wish I could remember the guy's name, but they talked to a lot of those people in the little henchman gang, and one of them talked about the smoke on the set. He was a guy, he was kind of a bigger guy, kind of had a little bit of a wavy hair look to him. He was much older in the interview, but yeah, he talked about the smoke on the set, and then he went on to talk about how he worked on a movie with James Woods, who came on the set, and the first thing he did was like say, nope, we don't need any smoke on this set. And he talked to these guys. He's like, I'm saving you like 2 or 3 days off your life because, you don't need to be
You don't see
breathing
that.
in all that smoke. It's disgusting.
You don't see that anymore. We talked about it on the very recent last month when we did, or 2 months ago, Candyman. Everybody in Candyman smoking through the whole movie.
Yeah, the whole
It's
thing.
like,
Yeah.
Jesus, we get it. It's a character trait. It's a trait people have, but like, it doesn't have to be every scene.
Right.
Anyways, Patrick Swayze, you know him from 2 of the Dawn movies, Red Dawn and Steel Dawn, and also Point Break. Kelly Lynch plays Dr. Elizabeth Clay, Drugstore Cowboy, the 2000 Charlie's Angels film, and she had a recurring role on the 2010 version of 90210. We talked about him a minute ago. Our boy Sam Elliott plays Wade Garrett. You know him from Mask. No, not The Mask. He's in the sad one about Rocky Dennis's big head. Tombstone, as I mentioned, your mom masturbating to. And he was the Phantom Rider in the Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider film. As one of the weirdest bad guys in an 80s action movie ever, it's Ben Gazzara as Brad Wesley. Anatomy of a Murder in the 50s. The Big Lebowski, he was Jackie Treehorn. Summer of Sam, the Spike Lee film. Brad Wesley owns the town and he drives in between lanes. He's just a menace. He's just like a white collar menace, but
He's allowed to just murder anyone. In town?
anybody doesn't matter.
Just destroy property, burn things down. He does whatever he wants. He's a very 80s villain.
Yes, he is.
Where
He
no
certainly
one is going to stop him if our protagonist doesn't step up his game.
And the weirdest part about him is this is jumping all the way to the end, but it's the Pint. Who the fuck cares? Is this is the guy who he employs all these henchmen. Everybody does his dirty work. But then at the end, he has a physical confrontation with martial artist Patrick Swayze. And during that, he doesn't act like a coward. He says, I always wondered what it would be like to fight you, Dalton. I'm like, no, this guy doesn't fight anybody himself. This guy pays people. I thought that was very odd, but okay. Kevin Tighe plays Frank Tillman. He is the owner of the Double Deuce, or as Sam Elliott calls it, the Double Douche. He was John Locke's terrible father on Lost. He was on Emergency in the 70s, and a film Professor Joe and I did a couple years ago. He was the villain in K-9. Now, here's one I've got to bring up because it's an amazing story, and I never knew this until Larry mentioned it to me 2 weeks ago, and then I paid real close attention. Keith David.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Looking just like Ernie Hudson.
Yeah, he does.
His name is Ernie. His name is Ernie.
I saw his name is in the credits at the beginning. Like
Fifth.
Yeah.
He is fifth listed in the credits. He has one line in the movie.
Yeah.
So
And he's never zoomed up on, like, if
Right.
you're not looking for him from afar. Because if I hadn't seen his name at the credits, I wouldn't have realized it was him. But when he comes on, I'm like, oh, that's Keith David.
yeah, you know him from obviously The Thing, They Live, Men at Work. And as Manster said, they never get close enough to him for you to be able to see that it's Keith David. Well, here's the deal. Keith David was hired to be in Roadhouse. His character had a beefier subplot, or at least he was a bigger minor character. But the director called him after the final cut. The original cut of this movie was, I know groans are coming, was 2 hours and 35 minutes long.
Oh.
And when they cut all the stuff they had to cut out of this thing, it was mostly all of Keith David. But Keith David has a great attitude because he got paid in full and he gets residuals on it because he is credited fucking fifth, even though you never see him in this movie.
That's nuts. Was he the only person of color in the whole movie?
He might have been, yeah.
I think he was.
Except for background people, which I don't even know if there were any of them.
I'm not sure.
His one line in the whole movie is "We're getting low on whiskey." That's all he says in the whole movie. Terry Funk plays Morgan. You know him from obviously longtime professional wrestler. We did me and Eric did over on the Pint Insider Over the Top. He was in that. He was in the Johnny Knoxville film The Ringer. He choreographed the final fight in Rocky V between Rocky and Tommy Gunn. Sylvester Stallone and Funk became friends through the years. That's how he ended up in Over the Top. That's how he ended up choreographing that fight. Here's some of his wrestling credits. New Florida Heavyweight Champion, ECW World Heavyweight Champion 2 times, and SCW Southwest Heavyweight Champion. That's just minor drop in the bucket. This guy was around forever, passed away a few years ago. Marshall Teague plays Jimmy Reno. They only ever call him Jimmy in the film. He is he's the bad guy. He's the goon that Patrick Swayze fights at the end. He's been in a trillion fucking things, Movie-wise, he had roles in Armageddon, The Rock, Vendetta, a film called Vendetta. On TV, a million credits, Knight Rider, First and 10, Sliders. And then I want to throw one more in there because I thought this was wildly interesting. Julie Michaels plays Denise. She's the blonde little harlot that's Ben Gazzara's like arm candy, who keeps on like, you know, they find reasons to get her into very hot little outfits. So you think of her a certain way, right? Oh, she's kind of like, oh, she's the hot girl actress, or maybe she was a playmate. Stunt coordinator, stunt driver, or just plain stunt person in hundreds of things. There's a TV show called SEAL Team. She was the stunt coordinator for the whole run of that thing. Ghost Whisperer, stunts. The TV shows VIP with Pamela Anderson in the 90s. Sons of Anarchy. The movies, Titanic and Halloween H2O, stunt person and all of those things.
Wow.
So I just thought that was really interesting.
I'll show you. Can't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah. I mean, and she's fucking super hot.
Great cover.
Yeah, it's a great cover. But yeah, she is apparently a really fucking good stunt coordinator. So, all right. So let's get into this. Stu and I talked about the remake recently. There is definitely a lot of stuff that comes from this, but it's still very much on its own. Very much the same beginning. What was his name? The Tillman character shows up at a bar called the Bandstand, and very nice kind of upscale bar. Whole beginning scene is him walking through the crowd, paying attention to how much money, you know, is being bandied about, and he's there for one reason, Manster. Who's he there to see? What does he want? What does he need?
He wants himself some Dalton.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, he sees him in action and he just solidifies, yeah, this is the guy I need. Because this other dude, Wade Garrett, he's on the way out.
Yeah. So
he's 43.
Yeah.
Can't hire a 43-year-old. That's absurd.
Wade Garrett has the reputation as being the best cooler in the industry, but they keep talking about how he's too old, which in 2024, they couldn't bring that up in that movie because some HR would have gotten called in.
And Swayze was only 36, so not a huge difference there.
No. So, same thing as the remake. There's some reticence there. And then finally they get down to talking money, and it's $5,000 up front, $500 a night. There's no set time. Like it's very much like the new one where it's just like, okay, I'll come do that for you. But they never say like, I'll be there for a month.
Right.
It's just kind of like, I'm going to come work for you until I don't want to work for you anymore. I have a question, Stu. What was the deal? They never seem to touch on it, or at least I missed it, with the secrecy of his cars. Like why did they make it a point to show him uncover that New York, I don't know, was it a Beamer or something that he drives? But then he drives beat up cars when he gets to the places. He gives his beat up car away. And when he's at the house he rents, the old guy finds the car and uncovers it, and it almost seems like we're going to find out a mystery, and we don't. Stu, did you think that was weird?
No, that's his real car. That's his, hey, I have to go live my life car because it's a really nice car, and he gets the beat up piece of shit car because he knows that the car is going to get trashed by assholes like it does at the Double Deuce. Like the first night he's actually working there, whenever he leaves, the windshield's busted, all his tires are slashed, his radio antenna's ripped off. Yeah, no, that's why he gets the beat up car, and he hides the other one just so no one knows that's his real car. It doesn't pay off very well for him in this movie, but
right, because he trashes that one.
Yeah, that's his Mercedes. He's not letting anybody know he has a Mercedes. He's letting everybody think he has this piece of shit car, so they trash it.
Man, as soon as you started talking, I went, oh, that's why. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But they do seem to make a big deal out of it.
When the old guy finds it,
when the old guy uncovers it,
I'm like, oh, are they going to find out that there was a murder with this car? Like, because it just seemed like it was going to be a bigger deal, but that makes total sense. You're right. His car does get fucked up at the Double Deuce. He probably doesn't want to get that. He has a life somewhere else. I also want to bring up the layout of the room he rents when he gets to Jasper, Missouri, which is where the Double Deuce is, for him to go work. Are there two houses? Is this a spare house? Is it a barn? He rents a room that there's no door to, and he brings a woman home to fuck her. In my head, the whole time, I'm thinking the old guy is just downstairs.
Like, I think it's a barn. I think I always thought it was a barn that's just really, really nice up on the top level where like you would normally have all the hay bales and everything. The guy just turned it into a spare apartment.
Okay, that's what I figured too. But it was just so odd. Until later in the movie when Emmett's house gets burned down. Every time he's in that room, I'm like, does Emmett hear him banging the doctor? Is like Emmett down there like sticking a finger up his butthole and like fucking go ahead, do it a little bit harder.
No,
So-
I think Brad Wesley was.
Brad Wesley.
Oh, Brad
definitely.
Wesley totally watches him bang her later
Yeah.
in the movie. Yeah.
Well, he's got these huge picture windows, right? That just totally face the lake or river, whatever it is over there.
Their houses face each other,
yeah.
and at one
And
point
Swayze goes out on the roof and has sex with her.
he bangs her on the roof awning, and Brad Wesley, who is like, obsessed with her, is like just watching through binoculars. I'm like, this is creepy. So we get to the Double Deuce, and this is when Dalton's going to introduce himself. Right off the bat, here's something I liked about this movie. I actually really liked the through line where they used Jeff Healey as the house band. Because at the time, Jeff Healey Band was becoming pretty big. Real life blind blues guitar player. That was his real band. If you've never heard them before, if you think you've never heard them before, you certainly know one of their songs because he's easily considered a one-hit wonder. Angel Eyes, which is a pretty popular song from the late 80s. What did I do? What did I say to turn your angel? Well, anyways, that's Angel Eyes.
I let you carry that one all yourself.
You like that? But yeah, so another sad story, man. This is a guy who went blind as a child from a sickness, and then he got cancer like maybe 15 years after this movie and died. So, but he's
Played the
actually
guitar like a fucking master, man.
Oh, he's great.
Laid down on his lap, like a steel guitar. Oh.
Yeah. And he's good in this movie. I like him in this movie because he is the bridge between Dalton's, he knows Dalton. He's here for some reason, and he can kind of fill in the other people with like, this guy ain't gonna put up with your shit.
Yeah, that's a good bridge. I like
Yeah.
that term.
And for being a musician, he's a decent actor. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that he wasn't just an actor.
Yeah,
first time acting too.
Yeah, and he has like an iconic line in the movie. The name is Dalton.
Yeah,
and then he does it again later in the movie though too, which I thought was funny. The name is Wade Garrett.
Yeah. Hey, what'd you think about his tagline? I guess that was repeated. God, I don't know, 4 or 5 times.
What did he have
for Dalton? And Jeff Healey says it at one point. Oh, I thought you'd be bigger.
Snake Plissken.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a Snake Plissken thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I did like that, but yeah, I thought, this is either a Snake Plissken reference or they didn't see Escape from New York and thought they're being clever. So he shows up, and Stu, what are some of the things we see right off the bat happening at the Double Deuce that are going to go against his new rules?
There is a waitress who's dealing drugs out of the bathroom. One of the bouncers is taking his floozies into the back room and banging them.
You're going to be my regular Saturday night.
Yeah. The bartender is skimming off the top and, probably stealing $100 to $150 a night, just putting it in his pocket. Terry Funk is the current head bouncer, and he just wants to fight people. He doesn't really have the temperament to be a bouncer. He's not there to protect property or anything. He just wants to beat the shit out of people. So yeah, there's a lot of mayhem going on. Like, that's 4 people just spring right to mind that had major issues that were working at the Double Deuce. And I don't know if there's even anybody else, but there's 4 people he lets go like right off the bat.
He fires them all in the first night. Terry Funk tells him, "You're a dead man." And we find out the bartender who's been stealing, who, by the way, I don't know if you know this, Master. I know you're a big music fan. You know who that was?
I forget his name.
It's John Doe from X.
Yeah, John Doe. That's right.
Yeah. He is nephews of Brad Wesley, who at this point we've only heard of, but Brad Wesley owns the town and he supplies the liquor to the Double Deuce. So we know that there's going to be a problem here. At one point, the bartender gets reintroduced and like, it's kind of said like, you have to hire him back, but Dalton's not going to hire anybody back based on being bullied. Manster, what is Brad Wesley's deal in the town? Kind of a mafia thing, right? Like, we learned that from a local auto parts store that, by the way, when that auto parts store blows up, man, it fucking blows up.
Yeah. He just owns the town. He owns everything. He owns all the businesses. Apparently he has helped them all out, given them money. So they all owe him a tribute. And that's the way the town runs. He has final say over everything.
So yeah, it
I
essentially,
feel like Johnny Rose from Schitt's Creek should have watched this movie. He would have had a lot more power in Schitt's Creek.
Never saw it.
Really? That's
never saw
absurd.
it.
Go
Yeah.
watch Schitt's Creek. Stop recording right now. We'll pick up on Roadhouse later. Go watch 6 seasons of Schitt's Creek right now.
See ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over! Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't...
So that's kind of like the dynamic that we have going on. And the movie just starts to settle into a real groove of a couple things happening. Wesley's guys repeatedly coming back and causing issues at the Double Deuce. Fight scenes. Stu, am I right in saying, at the very least, don't know how you feel about this movie, and we'll get there, but like the fight scenes are so much better in this movie than in the new
they're
one.
shot better by 1,000,000%. I know we complained heavily about how they were shot in the 2024 Roadhouse. They look like cinematic fight scenes in this movie. It's not like the director's up his ass trying to do anything clever or witty in the fight scenes here. They're framed and they're shot like fight scenes. They look really good. I would say probably the worst part about it is there are at least 2 or 3 moments where somebody is bleeding before they get hit. And you can tell that they weren't anticipating the camera picking that up. So in particular, there's one scene when the old bartender comes back and they're trying to bully Tillman into giving him his job back. And he's like, oh, I'm going to be the bartender and there's nothing you can do about it. And Swayze goes to punch him. And a second before his fist connects, you see this guy's nose is already bleeding. So, I mean, it's some cheap 80s effects for a low budget movie. But I mean, it definitely looks 1,000,000 times better than the 2024 Roadhouse.
Yeah, no, that fight scenes in that were,
I think,
ridiculous.
Rowdy Harrington did a fantastic job directing this, for sure.
Look, if your name is Rowdy, you've got very few choices in life other than to
you're
make
halfway
movies
there.
called Roadhouse. Yeah, you're halfway there to making a film called Roadhouse already. Dalton's whole philosophy, Manster, what is his whole philosophy with dealing with people, kind of?
His basic philosophy is be nice. You know, if someone's being mean and you want to ask them nicely to, calm down. If they escalate their game, walk them out, but walk them out nicely. I guess if they call your mother a whore, just be sure she's not a whore and just be nice.
That's a good line. What if they call my mother a whore? Well, is she? That's a good line. So one of the other things that happens is we have kind of the meet cute, Dalton gets stabbed during one of these fights and he has to go, very much like they do in the remake, go see the local doctor. I complained at the end of the episode on Roadhouse 2024 that there was no chemistry between Daniela Melchior and Jake Gyllenhaal. There is chemistry between these two, but their love story is still stupid as fuck. It just happens out of nowhere, and it's very quick. For an educated doctor, she just jumps on his dick the first chance she gets. Now,
right away.
I have another question to ask, and maybe, just maybe, this is as dumb, or at least I was not thinking as well, like the car one that Stu explained to me, which makes sense. But there's a scene where they go out one night and she drops him off at his car. He pulls a stop sign out of his car.
Yes.
And the scene ends. What the fuck was that all about?
I must have been looking down. I don't remember that at all.
And she drives away and just leaves him there.
She parks the Jeep and he gets out and she says bye to him. I don't mean he pulls out just the head of a stop sign. He pulls out like an 8-foot tall stop sign out of his front seat. He kind of holds it up and then the scene ends. And I feel like that's just a bad, maybe there was something we don't know about that was edited out, but they should have edited that scene of him pulling that out, because I literally just said to myself, did I go into a micro nap? Did he hit a stop sign? All right. So that was
just from all the people slashing his car and all that stuff. And somebody smashed his window with a stop sign.
Oh, okay.
That's what that was.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Again, I just what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
What happened here?
Another thing, you just mentioned the chemistry earlier. Do you know that she was not, Lynch was not the first girl to play that role?
I do know. And it's somebody that me and you both.
And I mean, lady.
Yeah. I do know, because I read this yesterday, and it's someone we were both balling out over on the Mars Attacks episode.
Yes,
Annette Bening.
Annette Bening.
Yeah.
And the reason that they got rid of her is because there was no chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah. I could kind of see that.
Yeah.
I can kind of see that.
How do you not have chemistry with Patrick Swayze?
Yeah. Or Annette Bening.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird, but I can kind of see it. She's married to what's his name? Warren Beatty. Maybe
Yep.
maybe her chemistry levels are a little bit like more refined than Patrick Swayze. Because let's be honest, like, and rest well, man, Patrick Swayze, because you had a great career.
Yeah.
And he is a hunk, but he's an odd looking dude. He's not like, he ain't Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is like, oh fuck, it just keeps getting better. Like face, boom, body, boom, all that stuff. Wow, this guy is all put together. Patrick Swayze kind of has kind of like a weird face. Kind of like, yeah, I think so. I don't know.
I think Patrick Swayze is pretty close to a 10 as far as dudes go. Patrick Swayze could get it. Patrick Swayze had great hair.
Let's make it clear. I'm not saying
the hair.
I'm not saying he couldn't get it. All right, let's go around real quick, and let's
correct John.
0 being the worst, 5 being the best, but we'll change it to 0 being the least hot, 5 being the most. Quarter and half scale optional. Manster, what do you give? 89
Roadhouse.
Patrick Swayze. And I'm gonna say this too before I give my score. That 91 Point Break Patrick Swayze is better, but. Okay. Go ahead for 89 Patrick Swayze.
For 89, he's got, if I'm remembering right, he's got the pretty luscious lips, right? He doesn't just have like the thin pencil lips like I got. He's got like these kind of like big, thick lips.
Dick sucking lips.
Yeah, he's got that hair. He's got a very nice sculpted face. Yeah, he's about a 4.5, I'd say.
All right, Stu, you gonna give him a 4.5 or higher?
Solid 4.5. The only thing bringing him down is there's a shirtless scene in this movie, and he has an Audi, and that's
right. You're right. And what was that fucking white T-shirt with?
What was that? Looks like he's wearing a karate gi in half of this movie. It kind of short sleeve karate gi,
right? But it's actually a shirt.
Yeah,
his whole outfit in this is kind of weird. Like all of his outfits in this are kind of weird because he's very much dressed like 1988, 89. Like the first scene when he's like dressed up nicely when he's working at the bandstand and he gets into that confrontation with those guys. When he walks out of the bar to confront them, his pants are buttoned up to his fucking nipples. Yeah. They're pulled all the way up to his fucking throat.
You can see his Adam's apple above his belt buckle.
All you see is his head sticking out of his fucking pants. I'll give him a 4. I don't think he's as hot as you guys do. Right. His face is a little it's not the classic beauty.
Who's a 5? I want to know what a 5 is for you.
Timothy Olyphant.
Timothy Chalamet.
I almost said Chalamet because that's everybody.
Andy would argue he's a 5. So
yeah, Olyphant, right? Or Chalamet. Chalamet's a good-looking kid, but I feel like I can't even say that out loud. I'm going to go to jail or get canceled. But Timothy Olyphant's a 5.
Okay.
Brad Pitt at various points of his career is a 5. Brad Pitt was like a 5 like around 7-ish time, and then like for years he was just a really good-looking dude. And then in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he is a 5 again. Like that scene where he's fixing the antenna on the roof. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Is this going to happen? Am I going to masturbate to a guy? Is it going to happen?
All right. I got one for you.
Yeah.
All right. Tom Cruise around, let's see, like early Mission Impossible.
Tom Cruise is in the same boat as Patrick Swayze. He doesn't have a traditionally good looking face. He's in great shape. He's a good looking guy, but there's something there that maybe it's the nose. He has kind of a bigger, nose. There's something about Tom Cruise. Now, George Clooney.
All right, so wait a minute. Give me a number for that.
Tom Cruise, Mission Impossible 1?
Yeah.
3.75.
All right. Tom Cruise, The Outsiders.
Young. And,
1?
Yeah, I'm going to go
young Tom Cruise, not that good looking. I watched Risky Business and I was surprised. Like, he looks very average.
Yeah. He's got Outsiders is even worse.
He also had bad teeth then. I think he had them fixed or whatever they do. So I would say more like a 2.5. He's still a good looking kid, but he definitely has improved with age. But George Clooney, that's a 5. That gentleman can get it all day long. And
George Clooney, yeah. Especially the older he gets. George Clooney and very underrated actor who is aging like the finest of wines, Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds now is better looking than like Blade Trinity era Ryan Reynolds. Just like his face is he's aging so well in the face. He looks younger and I don't know, just more of a glow about him.
Yeah, I will agree with that actually. Blade Trinity Ryan Reynolds was such a departure from like the pizza place, Two Guys in a Pizza Place, Ryan Reynolds. Because in Blade Trinity, that was when the shirt came off and you went, what the fuck happened to this guy? Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to do a whole episode on this eventually. So we'll get back to the Pint Diggs guys a little bit later. Let's get back to Roadhouse. So, things are kind of progressing pretty heavily. Brad Wesley is squeezing down in the town. He sends his personalized Bigfoot through one of the guy's, Ford dealerships to teach him a lesson in broad daylight. Nobody does a fucking thing about it.
Finally, his minions just randomly driving around a monster truck for no good reason finally pays off at the car dealership where they smash all the cars. Up until that point, I was like, why are these guys just driving a monster truck about town?
It was bizarre. You're absolutely right. That was
totally ruined that guy.
No, for sure. That ruined that guy's whole business.
Is it at the car dealership where like Terry Funk has been gone for an hour and all of a sudden comes back as one of the minions?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't for like a large chunk of the movie. He was not part of this guy's crew. And then I think it's at the car dealership.
Or was it when they came to
destroy
the alcohol delivery?
He shows up at the alcohol delivery.
Whichever one of those happens first.
Yeah, that's first. At that point, Wade Garrett, who is Dalton's like cooler mentor, shows up to help him in town. We get a scene where Garrett, Dalton and the doctor go out like drinking, and it is so clear, like it's not safe to bring your girlfriend out when Sam Elliott's around because he is
You're right.
He is probably gonna fuck her. He has while you're watching, he's just because he's got that Sam Elliott thing, right? He's just you mind if I dance with your lady? And of course you're gonna say yes to Sam Elliott, and then he's like dancing with her in a diner and she's all into it, and he's burying his face in her neck and that fucking scruff. And like, you're like, this is the only time ever that like peak era Patrick Swayze is getting cucked by fucking 43-year-old hot motherfucking Sam Elliott, who is gonna bang probably 29-year-old hot ass Kelly Lynch. There's a lot going on here.
I have a question. I need to interject here because I know we keep joking about how he's 43 years old and it seems unbelievable. How old do you think he's playing? Because he's not playing a 43-year-old with this whole, like, he's on his way out and, he's a little old to be a cooler at this point. How old do you think he's playing? Because I could easily buy him as his mid-50s.
Yeah.
I would say 50 to mid-50s. I think the idea is probably closer to 50, and the idea behind it is that very much like a pro football player, 50 as a cooler is way old, right? Like, like Tom Brady retiring at 42 or whatever was astronomical because most guys are retiring at 35 or 6. So I think the idea is that he is a grandfather in that profession, but he's still not very old, but he's certainly supposed to be older than 43.
Yeah.
Certainly.
I don't buy that he's playing 43. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I definitely think he was supposed to be older than that.
Yep.
Right. So Manster, what ends up happening with, we'll jump ahead a little bit, to get towards the end. What ends up happening with Wade Garrett that sends Dalton on a fucking rampage?
It was Tails.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things, but a hell of a lot of fights. Red's shop being blown up, and then Sam Elliott being stabbed, killed. What was he? He's talking to him. He's like, I'm gonna flip a coin. It's either gonna be heads or tails, whatever, and I'm gonna kill one of your beloved. And so he sees Sam Elliott, and all of a sudden he's like, well, it's not Sam, so it's gonna be Kelly, whatever her name is.
Yeah,
Doc in the movie.
Brad Wesley does his best, the Joker from The Dark Knight, and sends him off to figure out who it's going to be. He rushes back, finds out it's not Sam Elliott, although Sam Elliott comes out of the back room and you think he's been stabbed in the back.
Yeah,
it's
it looks like
those
he falls over and stuff.
But he's just been beaten up by a couple guys. So he goes, I love this scene because this says a lot about Dalton. He goes to the hospital, and I have to reverse this for a second. He goes to the hospital to tell the doctor they have to leave town together. And Wade's been trying to get him to leave town forever, and he's obviously connected to this doctor. He likes her. And she's just like, I don't want to be near you. Now, the reason she doesn't want to be near him, I'm going to back up a little bit, is because the night before, Jimmy, the main henchman of Brad Wesley blew up Emmett's house, the house that Dalton has been renting, the main house, blows it up. He leaves the scene of the crime on a dirt bike and does a villain cackle. he does that. Dalton chases him down and they have a fucking good old fashioned fucking martial arts fight. Both guys in real life, martial artists, Marshall Teague is too, which has two of the great scenes, two of the great moments where first, after getting the upper hand on Dalton, Jimmy tells him, I used to fuck guys like you in prison. That's a fucking hard line, man, for an 80s action movie. And then finally, when Dalton gets the comeuppance on him, he does what in the movie MacGruber is referred to as the turkey. It's the move that MacGruber does to, I think, like 40 henchmen at the end of the movie. He snatches his throat out of his body, which they've made it a point to allude to that Dalton had done this in Memphis before.
Now, he's got a finishing move.
Yeah, he's got a finisher.
Before you go on, a lot of what I read about the movie says that Dalton was haunted throughout the film by his memories of that.
Was
he ever haunted by that at all?
Only when it's brought up. There's one conversation between him and Sam Elliott where he's like, you got to leave Memphis behind, man. He's like, I can't.
Yeah,
that was it.
And
it's not like it was
the hour and 14-minute mark of this movie that all of a sudden they bring up Memphis and there's guilt and there's a murder subplot.
It's actually very much on par, although I like this one better, on par with the remake as to how they handle like this like character who suddenly has a dark secret that didn't affect them until it had to affect them. Because they did the same thing in the remake.
Swayze isn't playing this movie as a goof. Like, Gyllenhaal is playing 2024 as this happy-go-lucky, like, whistle while you work kind of guy, and that's not who Swayze is. So I buy that there's something in his backstory. Gyllenhaal, I never bought.
No, I do too, but they never play it as Lloyd was just saying, as if like he was tortured by it.
Right. Yeah.
There certainly is more gravitas. He's not a goof. He clearly is more of a business-minded guy. And so it fits better in this, but it's not done well in either one. During the fight, after he turkeys the dude, the doctor's there. She sees this happen. She actually tries to save the guy. She pulls him out of the water. His throat's fucking gone. So I love this because when he goes to get her out of the hospital and says, we gotta go, she's like, fuck off. Like, I don't want to be near you. And Dalton's just like, okay. He leaves. He goes back to the bar to tell Sam Elliott, let's get the fuck out of here. And that's when he finds a knife in Sam Elliott's stomach. He's dead. The sign from whoever it was says it was Tails.
It was Tails.
We end up back at fucking Brad Wesley's mansion. Dalton puts a knife to the pedal of his car, drives it through the gate. Typical 80s ending fight scenes. He kills all the bad guys. He puts we get to a room that's a safari room. Stu, did you find it weird that the fat guy, when he pushes the polar bear down on the fat guy doesn't move.
It's like the Austin Powers thing with the steamroller. He's just like, ah!
Not even that.
Ah!
He shoots it.
Oh, that's right. He does shoot it.
What is that going to do to a stuffed polar bear? But he does it. Okay, fine.
They got to knock it off course.
And this is where Brad Wesley suddenly becomes brave enough to have a fight with a guy that just ripped his like buddy's fucking throat out.
I love that he starts hurling spears at Swayze.
He does.
Really nice spear throw too.
Yeah.
Nice and straight and true.
Yeah, he did.
Starting with Swayze ripping the guy's throat out, you go from this like, okay, things are happening. There's some drama and some action in this. And in the last 20 minutes, you've got a guy getting his throat ripped out, people throwing spears at other people, a polar bear statue falling on somebody, and all of a sudden a gang of people show up and shoot somebody to death. It's such an absurd last 20 minutes, and I really like it. I really like the way this movie just completely loses its bearings and just goes nuts.
Manster, real quick, Stu mentioned the mob justice. What happens there?
Yeah, so he's in his final showdown. The guy's broken all kinds of spears and whatnot, trying to kill Dalton, which obviously he's not good enough for that. I forget exactly what the circumstance was, but he was off standing, ready to shoot, I think, Dalton. And then all of a sudden, he's just lit up by all the people in town, Red and Emmett, and I don't know, all the guys in town.
Tillman.
Tillman, who have had enough of this guy, finally. and they all just start, unloading their shotguns and whatever they got into him. And then very conveniently finding a place to ditch him before the cops get there.
Cops get there, and it's one of these things that we
cops get there, and the guys just all go, "I didn't see anything," and it's that's not how it works.
Yeah,
that's not how it works in real life.
No, it certainly is not how it works.
Just doesn't go like, well, I guess I got to write that these 5 people didn't see anything.
I guess nothing happened.
Yeah, we've all heard that story before. Like the town bully gets murdered and nobody saw it, But yeah, I seriously doubt it ever ends in a real happy ending, especially the kind of happy ending we have in this one where Dalton and the doc like swimming in a swimming hole and he's gonna fucking bang her fuck out. Like I don't think it happens that way very much. But so that's the end of 1989's Roadhouse. Why don't we move over to the box office, Master? You got that?
Show me the money.
So the budget on this was $15 million. The box office total, US, Canada, and worldwide was $61 million. So that's in the plus. Opening weekend was $5.9 million. Went up against things, top 5 Major League, Pet Cemetery, K9, Field of Dreams, Roadhouse was number 2, and See No Evil, Hear No Evil was number 1.
Oh, Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor, yeah.
Yep, that was it.
All right, let's move on and let's rate this fucking thing.
Now! What's it gonna be, Doc? Huh? What's it gonna be?
All right, you heard it before when we were getting all horny and talking about hot guys. It's 0 to 5, 0 being the worst thing ever, 5 being the best thing ever, quarter and half scale optional. I'll go first. This is a much better movie than the remake. That doesn't mean it's saying a lot, but this is a much better movie than the remake. Man, Patrick Swayze had a good, like, every 2-year period from 87. 87 was Dirty Dancing. 89 was Roadhouse. Now, Roadhouse wasn't a huge hit, but it has become a cult hit, and it's obviously one of his biggest films. And in 91, he makes Point Break, which is, one of his biggest roles.
When was Ghost?
Oh, 90. Right. So like, I forgot about Ghost. Fuck. That's his biggest role probably.
Yeah.
So he had a pretty big 4 years or 5 years right there. He's very good in this movie in terms of like, he leads it well. Sam Elliott is the perfect, like, salt and pepper to say, to add to that steak. He doesn't show up for an hour in the movie, but when he does, there's so much Sam Elliott there. Ben Gazzara is a very good 80s villain of this ilk, right? Like you're like, oh, I fucking hate this fucking guy. The movie's all over the place. We don't need a love interest, but we get one. And hey, look, we get to see Kelly Lynch's ass at one point. I got no problem with that. And yeah, her boobies too. I'm not going to complain about that. It's a fun movie. It's a fun movie. I saw this in the theaters with my dad, and I remember being mortified at the scene where the guy is fucking the girl in the pantry and going, you're going to be my Saturday night thing. And I'm like 13 with my dad, and I'm like, fuck me. So I almost think I didn't see it a lot like after that, because it kind of like, I think maybe I was just like, no, I'm not watching Roadhouse again anytime soon. But yeah, I enjoy it. The Vinegar Syndrome packaging is awesome. But I mean, it is what it is. I'm going to go with this is a solid 3. This is a solid 3. It is a criticism, as we mentioned before about the other one. This does not need to be 2 hours long. This could have been a tight 130. It could have been a tight 145. I wish we could have gotten a little bit of Keith David in there. And apparently, from what I read, Keith David had bar fight scenes. That would have been fucking great. Seeing that that's the guy who, a year earlier is in one of the greatest fight scenes in any movie of all time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with a solid 3. Stu, what do you got?
During the 2024 Roadhouse, we kept referring back to this a little bit, obviously, because of the subject matter. And I remember kind of noting that I wasn't a particularly big fan of this. And you were kind of agreeing with me that you think this movie's a little overrated and what have you. And initially, the first time I watched it, which was just within, like, since COVID happened, is the first time I watched the original Roadhouse, I gave it a 2.5. I thought it really dragged for the first, like, hour and 20 minutes. And I thought it wasn't until the last 20 minutes that things picked up. But Watching it this time, I liked it a lot more. The first hour and a half made a lot more sense. It felt a lot more like a congruent story than it did to me the first time. And the last 20 minutes is still just an absolute ton of fun. So I have it as a 3.5. I think this is really good. I really like Patrick Swayze in it. I think he does a better job than Gyllenhaal did, obviously, in the 2024 version. You give the 2024 credit for not trying to do Wade Garrett. Like, it just didn't even bother. Like, no one's going to replace Sam Elliott, so that version doesn't even have that character whatsoever. He's fun, and I actually wrote the numbers down because you said it's a while before he gets into the movie. It's the 46-minute mark when he first shows up, when he just gets a phone call.
It's like halfway,
Little less than halfway.
Yeah.
But it's an hour and 8 minutes when Sam Elliott finally enters the plot and like comes to the Double Deuce. So you get at the 46-minute mark, you get one phone call scene, and then he's gone for another 22 minutes, and then finally he comes in and becomes part of the plot. So yeah, it definitely takes a while to get Sam Elliott, but it's worth it because when he and Swayze are on the screen, the sexuality of the movie increases to 100%, and it's a 3.5. I like it.
All right. I did not expect that because, again, we did the Roadhouse 2024.
Yeah, no, I remembered not liking it, and then this time I enjoyed it much more.
Yeah. Like I said, I give it a 3, but something you said does ring true with me. I do think it's overrated. I think people love Roadhouse, and it's a fun movie. It's a good watch, but it just doesn't hit that like level for me. Manster, what do you got?
Yeah, well, it's pretty apropos that I'm in the middle of you, or after you guys. I feel like a sandwich.
Yeah, I feel like one too.
A couple little things that I wanted to mention is this was nominated for 5 Golden Razzies.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, I don't find it to be, like a terrible movie. It's kind of crazy that it would even fit that category. And one other funny thing is that I read a little thing about following the death of Eric Garner. Do you guys know who Eric Garner was?
Oh, he yeah, I read this too. He was one of the gentlemen in the last few years that was killed by a cop with a restraining technique, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
that's where I thought I knew that name from. Okay.
Yeah. The New York City Police Department started using the scene from Roadhouse as mandatory training.
Yeah. Be nice until you don't have to be.
Be nice under pressure. Yeah. I don't know if it worked that well, but maybe it has. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how this movie gets a reputation as being, like a bad movie or so bad that it's good movie. I think it's just a good movie. I mean, it's a good action movie. It's never boring. There's never like a lapse in action. Like Stu said, it's just dripping with sexuality when those two guys are on screen. It's pretty incredible. And I give it a 3.25.
All right. Roadhouse. Good for you, Roadhouse. Doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Just to even out all of this homoeroticism we have going with all of this, I do want to mention that what was her name? The woman who played Denise. She's smoking hot too. So when she's on screen, there's I just want to throw that out there because I want to be.
We are 3 straight guys.
Yeah, 3 straight guys. 3 straight guys.
The same.
All right. Before we go, we're not going to do the usual and tell you where to find us because it's the anniversary of April. We're going to do something special. I threw something out there on the Patreon and just said, hey, look, if you have a good memory of the Pint or to our insiders, or if you have anything you want to drop to us, drop it. So I'm going to read a few off every week for the next couple of weeks while we do this. Tonight, we're going to hit with our buddy Chris Ramirez, who we love very much. Chris says, I always remember the Invisible Man show, especially all the comments about the mustard.
The mustard. Wasn't that the name of that episode?
It might have been the mustard. Yeah. He says, I laughed so hard, I thought I would burst a blood vessel. I also remember the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode where Lloyd was so mad.
So bad.
That he had to watch it. He stayed quiet throughout most of the podcast. Yes, that is a great memory. That episode was me and Mike Butler versus Lloyd and Mike Field.
Yes.
Otherwise known as the 2 stuffy guys versus the 2 fun guys.
Thank you, Chris. I'm glad somebody enjoyed that.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, the mustard. Oh, the mustard. Let's see here. Julio Oliveira from the Contrarians. He says, I could go with ninja, which was a reference to the first episode Julio was on with us for the Octagon. But honestly, I still laugh when I think of John chilling during live stream for The Cure while Stu drank pickle juice or whatever that was.
Oh yeah.
That was good. Stu, you really took it home with the pickle juice. More recently, the Weezer episode was so much fun, and I'm not even that much of a Weezer guy. So next couple weeks, please, if you're an insider, drop it. If you're not, go to our Instagram, drop something. We're not like celebrating ourselves or honking our own horns, but it is kind of nice to hear like, oh, I enjoyed this of the Pint, or I had a fun time with that episode. So please drop them. We'll talk about them.
I might honk my horn later.
Maybe. I think you and Stu are going to be honking your horns individually, thinking about Patrick Swayze.
Get some Sam Elliott out there. Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm going to have a picture of Brad Pitt from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and a ketchup bottle up my asshole. All right, see ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over! Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!